What's going on, guys? Zack the RI Chevy Guy here, back with another video. Today we're going to be talking about my 1999 Z28 that I had in high school. Kind of the backstory behind that. A couple days ago, I was at work and one of my co-workers was going through my Instagram and found the picture of the car and was asking me about it. And I said, you know what? I'm actually going to make a video about it. This weekend, it's Memorial Day weekend and it's raining out, so there's not going to be too many car shows, and I'm not going to take out this car here. So I figured I'd make a video on this. I still wanted to put a video out. So back when I was 16 years old, it's about 2015, I really wanted a car like the one that I have now, third generation Camaro. Actually, I was looking for something between 85 and 89. I didn't want airbags with all the extra weight in it and everything because the cars weren't exactly fast as is. So adding more weight into them probably wouldn't help that either. So I was looking for a Camaro or a Firebird, mainly a Firebird. Always liked the looks of them, pop-up headlights, and I just thought they looked a little bit cooler with their taillights. So I ended up looking at a couple of them back then. Nothing really in good shape. Everything had been, overly modified or wasn't running right, rusted out, rust holes. One of them I looked at, the guy had painted the carpet that was coming through the floor black along with the bottom of the car, so the rust hole was a little less noticeable. And you definitely see that a lot around here with some of these cars from New England. So I looked at a few of them. Nothing really good enough to buy. Of course, as a 16-year-old kid, I thought they were all great and I wanted to buy them all, but my dad kind of steered me away from that and taught me better. He actually had a third-gen Camaro back in the day. He had a 86 Z28 carbureted car, T-tops, black and gold, with a manual like mine. And I've always wanted one pretty much since then. Now, my dad tried to steer me away from buying one in high school because 16-year-old kid in high school in New England where it snows with a rear-wheel drive car from the 80s doesn't exactly sound super safe, and looking back I kind of agree with him now. We looked at a few different cars apart from third-gen Camaros. We looked at a few Mustangs. First one we looked at was a 2007 Mustang GT. That was all falling apart. High miles, ripped interior. We drove it. Wasn't really a big fan of the Mustang. I mean, it's, they were faster, loud, they sound good. But I always like Camaros a little bit better. Now, my dad did end up finding one he told me to take a look at. It was a 1995 Mustang GT convertible. So that was the last year of the 5.0. Had a manual transmission, so we went down. The place where it was at is no longer in business now. They used to specialize in older cars. Checked it out. I drove it with them. The car had no brakes in it. I remember that. Drove it around. I liked it. Was actually really thinking about buying it. And went to go talk to the guy at the dealership there and see what he was asking for it. He wanted something crazy, like, I think he wanted like 10 grand, around 10 grand for it. I think it had about 125,000 miles on it. Interior really wasn't in that good of a shape. Paint was shot, but because it was the last year of the 5.0, the guy thought he had, he was sitting on gold there or something. So I ended up passing on that one. And there was actually a Volkswagen dealership next door to it that had a 2006 Mustang. That one was supercharged. We drove that one, and my dad drove it first. I drove it quickly in a parking lot, and I was like, it really wasn't for me. A lot of power at the time, and I wasn't that confident with driving a manual transmission car. So we passed on that one as well. I kind of started to give up hope on having a cool car in high school. At the time, I was driving a 2009 Honda Civic LX, not exactly the pinnacle of coolness in high school. So after kind of giving up on trying to find myself a third-gen Camaro, because I knew that wasn't going to happen, I was on YouTube watching videos, and I stumbled across this video on a Trans Am, and it was a 500 horsepower LS, I think it was a 98 WS6, something around there. And I was like, wow, that thing's pretty cool looking. So I was checking it out, trying to learn more about it, seeing that the prices were pretty good on them, and then they were newer, they were safer. So from a car guru search, I was able to actually find my first Camaro. I found it at a Mazda dealership here in Rhode Island. It was down in Wakefield. The car was clean. 63,000 original miles on it. No modifications other than it had an aftermarket radio, subwoofer under the seat, and it was lowered. Car was really, really clean. It was a 1998 Z28 convertible, automatic car, had the LS1, 99, same year that I was born, so I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. They only wanted about $6,000 for it. It started at 10, but by this time, I think it was October. It was October of 2016. So this is about a year later from looking at all the other cars. And I went down to the dealership after school one day, and I asked the salesman if I could drive it. And being 17 years old, I couldn't drive it without being 18. So I asked the salesman if he would take it for a ride with me. He said, absolutely. So we put the top down, went cruising. And the thing was fast, you know, faster than most things that I had been in at that age. And I just fell in love with the car. Had to have it. Went to work that day, came home, told my parents all about it, and asked if we could go see it the next day. So the next day we went to go see it, had my dad check it out. It was me, my dad, my mom, and my brother. We all went. And we drove it around Wakefield, and my mom had to be in the front, so my dad drove it. My mom was in the front, and then my brother and I were in the back. And if you've ever been in the back seat of one of these cars, you know there's not much room at all. It was a pretty uncomfortable ride, but my dad actually agreed that it was a pretty good deal. So we took a look, see what they would give me for my Civic. I think they ended up giving it me for $3,000 for the Civic. So it ended up being about $3,000 after the trade-in, which wasn't bad at all. That was right around the price of what the third gens were going for anyway. So basically got a fourth gen Camaro for the price of a third gen, which was great at the time. That was the first car that I'd ever named. I named that car Lucille. That came from an episode of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air where Will was getting hustled at a pool hall, and Uncle Phil came through, and he pretended to be terrible at pool, and then he had Jeffrey the butler break out his secret weapon, pool stick, which was named Lucille, and I always thought that was pretty funny. So the car was like the secret weapon. I had a couple buddies in high school. One of them had a 2011 Mustang V6. It was all tuned up. It was pretty fast. And another one of my buddies had an 89 Formula Fiber, which I was extremely jealous of at the time. So we were a little group. We used to hang out after school, go cruising, race cars down in Mexico, and just have a good time with them, really. It was a blast. Now, the Firebird couldn't ever really keep up with either of us. I raced him a couple times, and just the difference in power between the LS and his two-port 355 was pretty big. But the Mustang, however, that car and my Camaro were about neck and neck anytime they went. I remember one time down in Mexico, we were doing a pull. We were going down a hill. We were neck and neck till about 135 when the Camaro's rev limiter kicked in and kind of shut everything down. It was a 4-speed automatic car, so it really didn't have much past that. But we had a ball. We loved driving those cars around. And I think it was December of 2016, one day after school. I remember because I had just bought the tuner for the car because I planned on doing some work to it and making it even faster. I was coming home from school. It was a wet, rainy day, kind of like it is now. Sand on the road. I was less than half a mile away from my house. Took a right-hand turn, hit the gas coming around the corner, and the car turned completely one way. And being a 17-year-old kid who didn't really have any idea how to get out of a situation like that, naturally I overcorrected to the left, and then it started going that way, overcorrected again to the right. Next thing I knew, I was spinning all the way around in the street, ended up hitting a telephone pole in the driver's side front of the car. It wasn't really the fender, but it was kind of right at the headlight. Flipped that around. Airbags deployed. Remember seeing the passenger side deploy, hit the windshield, and that crack, and then the other one hit me in the head, and then my head bounced off the window. It was not a fun day. Probably one of the worst days of my life. I loved that car so much. I had so many plans for it. I used to wash that thing every day. Come home from school, make sure there wasn't a speck of dirt on it. And it was gone, just like that. Now, I ended up being fine after the crash, minor concussion. Didn't go to the hospital or anything until a couple days later when I started getting headaches and things like that. But I remember making that phone call to my mom, and that was probably horrible. Hearing the way that she was talking over the phone, she was so worried. I was fine. I was crying because I had just lost my car that I just spent all that money on, and I'd been working for a couple of years, so I was saving up my money. I was doing everything right to be able to get the car that I wanted, and I had it probably for about 2 or 3 months, and then it's just gone. Now, after I crashed that, I was looking online for another Camaro, the same thing, and my parents decided it probably wouldn't be a good idea to let me get another one of those the way that had happened. Which, I mean, it was completely my fault when I was driving it, but whatever there. So the next car I had after that was a 2008 Nissan Altima Coupe. Black on black. It was a good looking car. Had that one for a little under a year. And then I ended up trading that in for a 2006 Chrysler 300C with the Hemi. That car only had about 60,000 miles on it. Actually, no, I think it was a little under 60,000 miles on that. Had the 5.7 V8, which is what I was looking for. I wanted to get a bigger car because at that time I had started a detail business. My senior year of high school into around the summer, fall time of the following year. So I was doing that. Chrysler had nice big trunk space, so I was planning on using it for that. I was actually in college. And then I actually got a job offer at a car dealership to sell cars. So I did that. So I had the Chrysler, I had that tuned up a little bit, put a cold air intake on it, and I did an exhaust as well. I can't remember the exact name off the top of my head. If I figure it out, I'll put it in the video. That car was fun. It was pretty quick for what it was. I mean, being a boat, it was pretty fast. I remember racing one of my buddy's BMWs and actually beating him with it. And I was kind of surprised. I think it was a 2019. But it wasn't a V6 car, it was a 4-cylinder turbo. But still, I thought it was pretty impressive. I started having issues with that car with the electrical system. For some reason, I would go into, I would go to start it up, run it fine, say I'd run to Dunkin' Donuts in the morning, turn the car off, go and get back in, start it up again, and it would stall. Really weird issues with that. Then I ended up trading that one in after I bought my first house in 2019. And I got my daily driver that I have now, a 2017 Honda Accord Coupe. That one's a 6-speed as well. So basically from the time of having that Camaro until buying my house with a 2-car garage, I'd always been looking for more Camaros. And last year, around this time, I had my buddy Kyle come with me, take a look at a few cars, see what he thought. And the first one I looked at was a 92 Z28, white with red interior, 350 car, automatic. And I liked it. The underneath of it, around the frame rails and everything, was a little too rusted for my liking. The car's paint I didn't think was in that great a shape, and I wanted to take a look at a couple other ones. And that's when I actually found the car that I have now. I was looking on Facebook, found it through there. I messaged the guy about it. This is probably 4 or 5 days after seeing that white one. And messaged him, asked if I could take a look at it on a Sunday. And my dad come up with me, check it out. He said it was in great shape for the year and everything. And I ended up buying this one here for $47.50, which, looking at the prices the way they are right now, is a phenomenal deal. And I've had it ever since. So I guess all things happen for a reason. I'm sure if I didn't crash that car, I'd still have it now, or maybe I would have crashed it at a different time. But I guess it led me to actually getting the car that I originally wanted. So I got this car here, had it for a little over a year. I told you a little bit about what I've done to it, and it's been a blast so far. And this car is Lucille 2, so I did name it after that. After I crashed the car, one of the gifts my girlfriend got me was a little jar to put money in. She put a couple bucks in there for the Lucille number 2 fund. So, been looking at that. I still actually have that downstairs in my basement in the bar area, just as a reminder. So I got Lucille number 2. So that about wraps up the story of my first Camaro. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok now at RI Chevy Guy, so give those pages a like and follow. Let me know what you want to see next. Let me know if I should get another 4th gen Camaro or Firebird. Have been looking at those Trans Ams. They are pretty nice. We'll see what happens in the future. Thanks for watching. Appreciate all the support. Have a good one. Thanks.